Hi, beautiful souls, it's Sadhana. I'm back to the 31 Days of Tarot, and I think I'm at question number 12, so day 12. We're well into January, so likely not going to finish this project by the end of the month. But I have a few minutes here at work, so I thought I'd plug away and do 12, 13, maybe 14 and see where we get to. So, question number 12 is regarding imposter syndrome. So, really interesting that I would actually record this here at the store. I have experienced that, um, yes, a couple of times, but that was in a situation where somebody came into a reading, and from the moment they walked in the door, I knew that I should not give the reading. The energy of the client was extremely closed, and they were of the mindset that they wanted me to prove myself. It really had nothing to do with their wanting to move forward or their healing or looking at what was blocking them. It was all about, you know, prove yourself, prove that you're a psychic, prove that you can read my future, prove, yeah. And so in that situation, now that it has happened to me twice, twice in 2018, I have experience, and so I will know better how to deal with that should that situation ever arise. But I think that for me, um, I'm trying to make it loud and clear that my readings are not so much divinatory as they are about looking at your stuff and working through what needs to be worked through. And if you're not willing to go there and look there, then you need to find a different kind of a reader. So I'm not a fortune teller. I do look ahead, of course, a few months, and I do year ahead readings and things like that. But my work is in the modality of healing, and that's why I'm here. So if you don't like what you hear in a reading, then chances are that it's probably because you don't want to go there. It's just too difficult at this time, or you're not ready to go there. So I think subconsciously, a lot of us have things that are so deeply buried, and there's so much fear built up around it that it's just impossible to recognize. So yeah, I have never felt like I was imposter. I've just felt like I was unable to reach a client. And of course, because I'm human, self doubt crept into the situation in both cases. And that was really, really challenging. And I was fortunate that I had another reader not too far away, and I was able to resolve that, I think, once by telephone and once in person when that happened. And the second time it happened, there was another reader. I was here at the store, and she also had said something right away when the person entered the store. So it wasn't just me. So yeah, so that's question number 12. And then question number 13 is a look at the major arcana cards and the ones that represent who I am astrologically and how those play out in my life. So the question says, from the major arcana cards, what cards correlate to your sun, moon, and rising sign, and how has that resonated or played out in your life? So my sun sign, can you guess what it is? It's Leo. My birthday is August 12th. And my rising sign is Sag. So I have two fire signs, and my moon is in Capricorn. And so let's talk about the moon first. So my moon being in Capricorn is the devil. And I think for numerous reasons, that's really, really interesting. On a very basic level, like most women, I do have several self sabotaging behaviors that have resonated throughout my life and have repeated and I've had to deal with throughout my life. And one is drinking too much. And that came up in college years. It's a pattern that is very much a part of my day-to-day life, and some months, some years are better than others. For me, my weakness is wine, and I do my best to moderate that. And it's some points, sometimes it's a lot easier than others. And when I am aware, because all of the idea with addictions and self sabotaging behaviors are part of the second chakra. That is where our karmic patterns lie. It is so. This is the place where we have to give ourselves permission to live in joy. So on one side we have addiction and these kind of murky, lurky things, and on the other side we have sunniness, we have joyfulness, we have really living in a very authentic way. That's where the creativity side of the second chakra shines through, and there's a lot of light and beauty in that. What I wanted to say was that, so having my moon sign there, so moon in the pelvis, right? That's where we have our reproductive organs and all of that. Is really cool. And I think that has made me a lifelong learner, lifelong awareness of the challenges of the second chakra. So that is really, really cool. And of course, it's been later in life that I've started to realize all of this. And it is my life's work now to help others to, work through the lower three chakras, especially because they're, of course, the most challenging bits to work through. I could ramble on because I love talking about this stuff, but let's go on from there. So Capricorn, Devil, Moon sign is in the pelvis, okay? And then my Sun sign is the Strength card. Well, that's an easy one for me. I'm a very strong person, gentle giant. I'm tall. I'm physically quite active and healthy. I'm a yoga teacher. I've always found the physical strength, but the gentleness at the same time, right? So I, yeah, the strength card is about inner strength, right? So it's about resilience, it's about tenacity, it's about long-term stamina, and that's something that I've had throughout my whole life, and I find that through um, looking after myself, right? So the physical health, as well as I've always been interested in food. I'm a bit of a foodie and have been since I was in high school, and so that has played a big part in that too. And then I am a mother of four children. So there's a lot of inner strength, a lot of gentle strength that comes through that aspect too. And there is a connection, of course, between the mother, the second chakra, right? The place where everything is birthed from, and where I get my strength from. Of course, strength would come from third chakra energy, but it's all very much connected. My ascending sign is Sagittarius. So, of course, that's a sign of another fire sign, a sign of transformation, a sign of expansiveness, and things like that. Spiritual, that's probably where my spiritual aspect comes in. I had a very interesting reading done yesterday from somebody who does alignments, spiritual alignments, and there's a physical aspect to that as well too. But her observation was, and her teachings and belief were that I was very much a left-brained person, which makes perfect sense because I'm super organized, always did well at school, a bit of an academic in that regard. And so I asked her, why was I so passionate and curious and involved and now working full time in a right-brained occupation and lifestyle if I was a left brain dominant person. And so we talked for a while about how that passion for the right brain life was about bringing my left brainedness into balance. And I thought that was super, super cool. Having two fire signs makes me a really fiery person, and so sometimes that can get out of control, and that's something over the years I have learned how to mitigate, prevent, avoid, step back, and I like to think in the last, especially the last 8-10 years, I've really learned to not react. My third eye chakra has it's been a gift, the awakeness, the awakening, the slow awakening, the developing awareness, and all of that. So I am much more able to now step back and to see the big picture, and far, far less reactive than I ever was. I'm very comfortable in the court cards of the wands. That is, my place of comfort. I love creativity. I am, I've done arts and crafts my whole life. So crafting is my passion, and I love designing. I've always designed costumes and things for my kids, and I love to create little knickknacks and things and make my Christmas gifts and things like that. So that aspect of the fire sign is very much alive in me. I'm also, a great hostess, and I love to be with people, and I love to entertain and all of that. So all of those cards actually resonate really, really, really well with me. And having two fire signs, I've had to work very, very hard on all of the issues, third chakra issues, and so that is part of my ongoing practice. And I believe that even though I do very much work in the heart, throat, third eye chakra on a daily basis, that because of my awareness that I am constantly doing work and practices to help to purify first, second, and third chakra stuff. Yeah. So that is my answer, not so much in a nutshell, to question number 13. Question number 14 is a really interesting question. It has to do with the symbology of the tarot, and do I ever use a tarot deck and refer to the symbology? So I brought two decks with me today, not to do client readings, but in case I had time to record this video. So I'm going to get those out for you. They're actually, they're right here. So for those of you that know my story a little bit, I lived in Japan for years. I speak, read Japanese. And so when I got this deck, so this is the manga tarot. This is a Lo Scarabeo deck. It's called, manga tarot. I was really, really intrigued with this deck because on each of the cards there is a Japanese kanji, the Chinese character for the season. And so each of the cards is connected to a season. So that's Fuyu, that's winter. And for the most part, the season makes sense, and it is obvious from the color, but in some cases it's not. And so when I use this deck, sometimes I look at just the kanji and understand what season it is, and then I refer to that it really speaks to me. It speaks to me in a different way. So when I use this deck, I read it in a very different way than I would another deck. I don't tend to look at the seasons in other decks. And because this symbol is on these cards, it has a very powerful, yeah, isn't this a great Ten of Swords in this deck? It has a very, it has an effect on me. And it may be my connection with the Japanese language. So the tens, oops, sorry. So some cards have more than one season on them. So this has 3 different seasons on it. And it influences me in a way that, in an unexpected way. This is a great Hanged Man card or Hanged Woman card. I'm going to talk hopefully on one of these questions, one of these days. I was driving to work and I had a long kind of self-reflection on the Judgment card, the Hangman card, and the Hermit, and the difference between the 3 cards, and my reflections on that. So yeah, so this is a symbol heavy deck for me because of the characters on the cards. So it just makes me read that deck in a very different way. Now the other deck that I wanted to, sorry about that. The other deck that I wanted to point out, which is a deck that I've only looked at a few times. I am very reluctant to read with this deck. It's a bit like a scary Ouija board to me. And I was very excited when I saw the first few cards that came out for this deck. I mean, there's a couple of, look at this Sun of Water. Right? Isn't that gorgeous? Just a beautiful, beautiful card. I'll show you a couple of the cards, and why I wanted to have this deck in my collection. Yeah. And for those of you that have seen this deck, so here's the Six of Wands, which is a contemporary take on the man on the horse with the laurel wreath on his head. Anyway, and there are some good cards in this deck, but there's a lot that just are, it's so unnecessary. Here's one of the reasons I will never use this deck with a reading, right? So this is the Nine of Swords, the Nightmare card, and it's called Cruelty. So that's why but there's something about this deck that I want to, excuse me, I want to give it a chance. Here's the Three of Swords. So we have the Three of Swords on the tattoo on the arm, but we also have the injection as well too. This Daughter of Air, Daughter of Swords, is super powerful. Look at the focus in her eyes. But this is not why I pulled this deck out for you. I wanted to talk about the symbology on this deck. And I think that if I were to use this deck, it would be because the elements are so strong, both in the image as well as I would rely more on the element sign than I would on the images. And there are some great images. Right, so here we have the triple goddess symbol. And if we look at symbols, right, we have the cards, We have the symbology of a meditation posture, right? So if you can look at the symbols, I mean, we do have the mirror and the veil and all of that, but we don't really have to go there. And I think it's the minors in this. So I bought this deck for the Hierophant just because it was the Dalai Lama. But look at the symbols on this card, right? It's about, so we have the Shinto shrine here. We look at everything. It's just so inclusive. And so, you know, that's why I bought this deck, was because the symbols were, the symbols were so good. They were so well done. I mean, look at the Devil card. Talk about use of symbols. Pretty darn powerful, but, you know, pretty scary, scary card. So I think this is a deck that I need to take more time with, but the potential for reading this through its symbology and learning to detach from the especially the cards that are quite horrific. So detach from the story and stay with the symbols would be a lesson in itself and would be a really, really good practice as a reader. Like if we look at this Hermit card and just find the symbols, right? There's letters in the background, where we can look for symbols. And I mean, he is alone in so many ways. But go outside of the story, find the symbols, and work with the symbols. Here we have the golden egg. We have an egg. So work with the symbology of the egg. Work with the symbology of, right? So we have the air sign down in the bottom. And what other symbols speak to you here? I just think that if I have done this, many people have done this and put this deck away and either been in shock over some of the pictures on the cards or not given it a fair chance, because I think there is a chance to work with the symbology. So here we have what card is this? Okay, I don't even know what card this is. This is 8, adjustment. But I'm looking at it with the symbols of the birds. And I'm looking at just the symbology of balance and what's involved in balance. This does take me to story. This does take me to places in Southeast Asia where I've seen girls going down to the river and balancing enormously large clay water vessels on their head and carrying water back to their homes from the river. I mean, it does take me into story, but I think there is an opportunity with this deck to dive deeper into symbology. So that's my question. It's really a question and a challenge to myself, is that when a deck is difficult, when a deck is, when the images are challenging, when the images are harder to work with, can you go to the symbols instead and just stay focused on the symbols and step outside of the story? Because isn't that really, you know, what we're supposed to be doing anyway? We're supposed to be looking at the big picture. We're supposed to be looking at the connection between the symbols, the connection between the story, and not getting wrapped up in the story of, you know, one little card. There we have it. Okay, so the next question is about my tarot to go bag. So I thought what I would do is I would unpack my tarot bag and show you everything that's in that. So I'm going to do that on a separate video. So I'll leave you here. Stay well, my friends. Namaste. Leave your comments below. If you have any questions about anything that I've said, or you're interested in asking me about the kind of work that I do, the kind of readings, I would love to hear from you. Namaste. I'm back. Sorry, I have two more thoughts that I want to share with you, and I will keep it short, I promise. One is on that number 8 adjustment card from the New Elements Tarot deck. And I just had, of course, that is the Libra card. That's the card of judgment, right? The card of balance. But the thought that came to me was the movie, The Adjustment Bureau, and how that movie was about making minor adjustments throughout your life to bring your life into balance. It just kind of put a whole new perspective on that movie and some of the thoughts I was just having. And the other thing I wanted to add on was that I didn't mention that the Sagittarius card is the card of temperance, so card number 14 in the majors, and how that was a part of my life. But I guess that should be pretty obvious from the kind of work that I'm doing. And my business is a business of integrative healing, so using different modalities to bring health and wellness to my clients has wove its way finally, and I'm so grateful, into my life on a full-time basis. So that's it. Those are my two little add-ons. And again, wishing you well. Have a lovely weekend. Namaste.